Hello and welcome to Kelly Appy, a self-help podcast. We are in season 3 officially now. And boy, do we have a great show to start us off with. Today, we're going to be discussing a lesser known addiction. Now, I think when someone brings up the word addiction, immediately people go to drugs or alcohol. However, you know what? Addiction doesn't just limit itself to drugs and alcohol. Oh no, there's many other different forms it can find to manifest itself in a person's life. For example, did you know that you can actually be addicted to love? It's not just a Robert Plant song. That's right. And furthermore, you can also be addicted to sex. In fact, frequently they go hand in hand. And the baffling thing about these particular addictions are they are so super sneaky. Frequently, people may suffer from them and they don't even realize that they have a sex and love addiction. However, like any addiction, it seeks to destroy the person's life unless they seek out help. And today I'm going to talk to a recovering sex and love addict by the name of Mindi to shed some light on this form of addiction. So, please welcome to the show, my friend, Mindi. Okay, welcome, Mindi. So glad you could be here today to talk about this with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about this with you.
Well, it's really, like I said in the intro, it's one of the lesser known addictions, but I think a lot more people suffer from it out there than they realize, because you don't really realize it when you have it. You just think, something's wrong with me. Why am I like this? So Can you just so people know what sex and love addiction is, can you kind of explain that real quick and then maybe go into your story a little bit?
So it's a hard thing to explain real quick. I will do my best because it has so many different faces. When we look at drug and alcoholism, we have a pretty good idea of what that looks like. It's abusing a chemical substance. Whereas with sex and love addiction, it's we're using people. We're using emotions and abusing them to change our state of mind. And so that can look really different for a lot of people. I tend to be on more of the acting outside. So there's people who have multiple partners and sleep around a lot. And kind of if you picture what a sex addict would look like, that's where I tend more to be. But there's also, sexual anorexia, which I can err on that side too, which is extreme closeting of, relationships, like not wanting to be around other people, not opening yourself up to sex and love because of the fear and the pain. So it's really a spectrum of just using people to alter our state of mind.
That's interesting. I was introduced to sex and love addictions when I was in a toxic relationship in my early sobriety. And like you said, I was using this other person as my, that was my fix. The love I was seeking from this other person was my fix. And I was willing to do, just like the alcoholic guy, willing to do whatever it took to hold on to that feeling. Because when I got that love that I wanted, it was like a high, and I was chasing. It's just like the addict chases that high. The alcoholic, chases that escape. It was that same feeling. Did you have that same sort of thing happen as far as you?
Yes, absolutely. So they say that the human orgasm is like 100 times more powerful than the high from cocaine, something to that effect. It's crazy. So the human orgasm is extremely powerful and extremely addicting and creates a physical high. So it's very easy to be addicted to. And for me, it was exactly like you just described. I could not stop acting out, even when I honestly wanted to. And so what that looked like for me is my drug of choice is married men in their 40s. And so I am also an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic. And so for me, I would black out on drugs and alcohol. And I would go have affairs with married men in their 40s. And it was an entire that entire process, it wasn't just the sleeping with them. It was the texting and the excitement and the hiding it from other people and keeping it from my husband and keeping it from their wives. And it took so much energy and so much time. And I was constantly in fantasy or obsession. And so that was one of my main consequences from alcohol and drugs. And so when I put alcohol and drugs down, I was like, oh, great, I'm going to stop sleeping around. I'm going to stop ruining people's marriages, ruining my marriages, because I've been married a few times. And after I put alcohol and drugs down, it unfortunately did not stop for me. It was really easy for me to say that, to blame it on the alcohol and drugs. And then when I put it down and it kept going, I was able to see that there was a deeper problem.
Did you know at the time that it was an addiction, or did you just think, oh gosh, I'm just this, for me, I thought, God, this is this terrible person. Why am I like this? I didn't get that it was an addiction until I really started diving into it. I was like, oh, wait a second. Oh my God, this is just like, I need to put this down. I need to stay sober from this, just like I needed to put the bottle down.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I was drinking and drugging again, I just viewed it as a consequence of that. I didn't think about it. I just did what I wanted to do to feel how I wanted to feel. But when I put the drugs and alcohol down, I actually started having an affair with a married man in his 40s. Surprise, surprise. In the place that I was finding help from my alcohol and drug addiction. I honestly did not want to be having this affair. I tried to stop, and I could not. And I thought I was just a bad person. I thought there was something inside of me that could never be fixed. And called myself a lot of names that I won't repeat here. But
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I thought I was just broken and that nothing could fix me. And so I said, to hell with it. I might as well just give into it.
Mm-hmm. And what did that mean? Like, just like really going at it, going after like a ton of different partners, or did you just have one person that was your drug of choice? Or
I had one person that was my main drug of choice. I call it like my own personal brand of heroin. Like he hit all the boxes that I needed to physically get high off of interaction and sex with him. And then, that still wasn't enough for me. So I had to get attention anywhere I could find it. Any man I could make eye contact with, any man I worked with, I had to get them hooked because it did something for me. It made me feel alive and important and special. So yeah, really any man that fit that description or came close to that description was a drink for me, right? Like I had to consume them, as sick as that sound. And it is sick. I had to consume them to feel good about myself.
And it's much like the alcoholic. Anybody who's not an alcoholic won't understand. It's like, why don't you just stop?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you just stop? But really, for any addict or alcoholic and anybody who suffers from any sort of addiction, it's not that easy. You can't just stop. It really is a sickness, that you are dealing with there.
Yeah. If I could have stopped, I would have. I would have loved to have stopped hurting my first husband and my now husband. And gosh, these people's wives and kids, and hurting their work reputation, so many things on my own. I would have loved to have put it down, but I could not. And you bring up a good point about, we say, just don't drink, just for today, just don't drink. And I had a friend who's also a recovering alcoholic tell me, just don't sleep with him today. Just don't sleep with him today. And even people in the rooms of other addictions don't understand it because it's not a chemical dependency. Yeah. There's so much misunderstanding. We think it's just a moral choice, and it's not. It's a disease.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You've kind of got. See, I really relate to the love addiction side of it, and you really have. So we're kind of interesting conversation we're having with the sex and the love addiction side of it, because it is very subtle. Because you're like, no, I love this person. I need this person. This person needs me. and it's so easy to make it into something that it's really not. And it's sick, and you do things you don't want to do. You regret it, even with a love addiction. This person who I relied on really knew how to keep me hooked on them, and so once we would break up, I would say, "Oh, it's done," much like the alcoholic or drug. I'm done with this. It's ruining my life. Yet all it would take would be a phone call, and I'd be picking up, and then the high, and then the chase would be back on. Right.
Yeah, that was me. And I would, have an affair. And then once that one ended, say never again, that's the last time. And then a few days later, I find myself somehow right back in another affair because I couldn't sit with my feelings and I had to medicate them away. And yeah, it was the love and the sex. They go hand in hand for me. The sex is a physical high and the love is a mental high for me. The obsession, the being pursued.
Yeah. And so what was it that was your bottom with your addiction? Every addict usually has to come to a bottom before they can really make a change in their life. Would you be okay to share what your bottom was with your sex and love addiction?
Yeah, absolutely. It was after I got sober from drugs and alcohol. I'd been sober for about a year and didn't realize it at the time, but know now that throughout that entire year, I had been hooking men, right? I had been texting them and being inappropriate and being sexual without actually having a physical affair until finally I had a physical affair with someone that was in my recovery group. And so because of that, it hurt so many relationships and I started lying. And that's really where all of my diseases come to a head when I'm lying. I had to hide it from the people who are helping me recover. And I had to lie to them and I had to lie to my now husband. And I got to the point where I could not stop sleeping with this person and I couldn't not stop sleeping with this person. And that was where, thankfully, I had gotten to that point with drugs and alcohol. So I knew that, okay, shit, this is not okay.
It's okay.
This is not... this is a problem. I can't live with it, and I can't live with him, and I can't live without him. And so I found someone who has recovered from this disease, from sex and love addiction, and she was helping me through it. And I was still very much in the throes of this affair. And she got to a point where she said, "I can't take you any farther. I can't help you anymore until you're able to let go of this person." And I said, "Okay, bye." Because I knew I couldn't. I just knew I could not let go of this person. And that was my bottom. I felt unbelievably hopeless. I wanted to stop. And I wanted to keep working with her because what she had been telling me and bringing me sounded so great. She had recovered and she was a whole person. She didn't have all these many different lives and many different hats. But I couldn't let go of it. And that was my bottom. It was a really dark time. And I definitely got to the point of having suicidal thoughts, which is one of the major ways that this disease killed us. It's life and death, just like chemical dependency diseases.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. So many people, they don't know what to do because they think they're so broken they cannot be fixed, and they can't imagine a life without their drug of choice, which with a sex and love addict, it's a person, And so I can totally relate to that because I couldn't imagine my life. My world revolved around this person. And he, for all intents purposes, was my higher power, and he
absolutely
no business being my higher power. He made me feel like I was crazy every time I would question him and do things. I was like, why are you cheating on me? Blah blah blah. And the nature of the disease is that because he was also a sex and love addict too. So he was lying to me and he was stringing me. I was his drug of choice too. And we were using each other.
We find each other.
Exactly. Was this other guy that was your guy? Was he a sex and love addict too, or was he just a guy who wanted to have an affair?
He was a sex and love addict, and he had actually experienced recovery and been in 12-step programs for his sex addiction. Obviously was not sober. So, but yes, we find each other,
Exactly.
We feed off of each other.
Oh, that's exactly it. If two sex and love addicts get together, they feed off each other because they need each other. It's kind of it's a weird symbiotic relationship where they need each other to keep feeding that addiction. I used to call it the dance of death, Mindi, where, I love you, I need you, and now go away. And then we break up and then come back. And it was just like constant. And for me, I don't know, it literally had to start just like I got sober from alcohol. I had to cut this person out, like your person was saying. I had to cut this person totally free. And when that meant, like, when the phone rang and I saw it was this person, I had to not answer it. And how I was able to do that was A, the surrender that we had, and then B, I said, I'm going to make an amends to this guy for keeping my side of the street. I'm going to make an amends to this guy by not picking up the phone call and participating in this sick relationship for me anymore, because it's hurting him and it's hurting me. So if I quote unquote really love this guy, I need to cut him free because he's suffering just as much as I am.
Yeah. And our disease tells us it's love, right? And it's, for me, I've learned through recovery what true love is. And that wasn't love. It was almost all fantasy. It was what I was making up in my head. It was what he was making up in his head. And for me, just like alcohol and drugs, I had kept having to up the ante. I couldn't just have an affair. At first, that was enough to get me high, but then I needed more. Then I needed to have sex in public. Then I needed to have multiple affairs. Then I needed to, I'll stop going because it gets too graphic, but I kept having to have more and more and more, just like I did with alcohol and drugs, to get the same amount of high that I was getting.
It is. You're chasing that high from the sex and love. So what did your recovery look like for this? When you hit your bottom, how did you handle that?
Yeah, so it was actually that same day that my friend told me that she could no longer work with me. And thankfully, I was on a trip. I was away from my drug of choice, which was a gift. And I had reached that point of desperation. And I said, I'm going to die if I continue this way. I'm either going to kill myself, or these risky behaviors that I'm partaking in are going to kill me. And that happens to a lot of us. A lot of us don't make it back. And so I gave her a call and I said, okay, I'm willing. I don't know if I can do it, but I'm willing to try. And she said, okay, she walked me through how to do that. And what that looked like for me was sending him a note saying it's over, and blocking all forms of communication with him. And not only him, but all of my affair partners in the past, all of the people I had acted out with in the past. I had to stop the connection. I had to put it down so that I could work on me and look at me. And that's how it started. And I found some relief with that, eventually. At first, it was so painful. I would come home and I would lock myself in the room because that was safe. There was no alcohol, there was no men. And so if I could just make it home at the end of the day and lock myself in, like, okay, I could go to bed sober that night. But it was extremely painful. They say that the withdrawal from sex and love addiction is 10 times more painful than from any chemical.
Oh, I can totally relate to that, because I do remember, like, I felt when I was going through my recovery from my surrender and finally made the decision that I needed to get out of this bad love addiction that I found myself in. It felt like my soul had been ripped out. And I just remember just crying and saying, oh my God, I got to just get through this. Got to get through this. I know I can get through this. And I think us that have been who've been battling with alcoholism or drug addiction and have kind of worked through that, understand that, yeah, it hurts today, but it's not always going to be like this.
It gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah,
Yes.
we know you're going to have to go through the pain. We know it. And we know, though, the price on the other side, the payoff on the other side is going to be, an amazing life and freedom from this horrible thing that's been weighing us down and destroying our life, And I don't know that people who haven't been through recovery, they like you said, they see hopelessness. They see, I can't do this. And like you said, end their life, to, just stay in the addiction until it kills them. Right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Were you with your husband at the time? Did you have a husband at the time? What's the story with that?
Oh man. So I had, at the time when I reached my bottom in sex and love addiction, I had divorced my first husband and was living with my now husband. We were just dating. But I had been unfaithful to him and it was extremely painful. But I came clean to him and we actually started recovery together. And we started going to see a therapist together and unpacked a lot of things through that, which was really hard. And actually something really common with sex and love addiction is that you do something called a disclosure with your partner, which for me meant sharing anything and everything sexual I had ever done in my entire life with my husband, with a therapist present. And that was so scary, Kelly, for someone to actually see me, see all of this crap that I had done. And for
all
him
the secrets you had to just bare all the skeletons and show him everything.
Yes.
Wow. How did that feel?
It was so scary, but for him to sit there, my higher power put him in my life because he sat there and he listened and he accepted me through all of that. And I had never, ever felt accepted before. And he stayed, and not everybody stays and not everybody can stay, but he stayed. And that was so powerful just to be seen and to be accepted.
What a great way to start a relationship based on honesty, and truth. And so you guys have been married how long now? Let's see.
4 years today. Today is our anniversary.
Yay! Oh my gosh, how great is that? This is your happy anniversary,
Thank
Mindi.
you. Thank you. Thanks.
And not only that, you have found this amazing man, and you have two beautiful little girls, one brand new,
just a few weeks old. Yep.
They're taking a nap with your husband right now. So how would you say you recovered from this sex and love addiction?
Yeah. For me, I found women who had recovered from it and who had what I wanted and who had stopped acting out, and whatever their way looks like. It doesn't look exactly like my story, but they were doing things that they couldn't stop doing and they had recovered from them. And so I found a 12-step recovery group and I worked the steps around this problem. And that's how I became free. That's how I stopped. Higher power willing, I will have 5 years sober from sex and love addiction next month.
Wow, that's great.
And that's how the 12 steps and doing a lot of therapy work to really get to the root. I mean, there's a reason why my drug of choice is married men in their 40s. But I had to put them down to get to the root of my addiction.
So it was because 12-step recovery focuses on a spiritual solution.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had the spiritual solution along with your mental health solution with the outside help of a therapist. It's kind of a hand-in-hand sort of thing that had to happen there to get you through the process. Is that
That's what had to happen for me. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They have certified sex addiction therapists, actually. So people who specialize in this. And she helped me to find the recovery group and to find my higher power who removed the obsession and who has given me sobriety today.
So that might be a starting point for somebody who, if they're listening to this podcast and they feel like they might have a sex and love addiction going on, that they don't know what to do, seek a therapist who specializes in sex and love addictions, and then they can kind of guide them to where they need to go to either say, yes, you do have this, or no, we just need to work on some other things here. Because not everybody is a sex and love addict.
No, a lot of us are. Yes, a CSAT. A CSAT is what they're called, Certified Sex Addiction Therapists. And they actually have a test to see where you are on the spectrum. And they know a lot about it. So that would be a great place to start, is just to make an appointment.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Well, look at this. The time has flown and we are almost out of time here. I can't believe it. I could talk to you for hours. And I believe Mindi might become a recurring guest on Kelly Appy.
I would love that.
So Mindi, we end each segment with having our guests give a message of hope to the hopeless out there for help and healing. So what is your message out there to anybody, woman or man, who thinks they might be suffering from a sex and love addiction? What can you say to them?
I think I would want to say you're not alone, that you can feel dirty, you can feel disgusting, you can feel evil. You're not alone. You're not unique. There are other people who have been right where you are, and they're not there anymore. And so there's hope. But you're not the worst person on the planet. You have a spiritual malady, and there's a spiritual answer for that.
Oh, that is beautiful. All right. So I'm going to close with a reading that I found from the author Zara Berry from her book. Listen to what this is called. Girl, Stop Passing Out in Your Makeup.
That was us.
I'm going to have to go get that book. But she says, my fellow girls who grew up too fast, I want you to know none of this is your fault. I know it feels that way sometimes, and I know we've all done things we aren't proud of. But it's time to release yourself from the shackles of shame, babes. You did what you had at the time. I get it. But instead of the weight of regret dragging you down into the ground, I want you to let your sordid past lift you up. Own your story. Be empowered by your story. As awful as all that was, it's granted you gifts that can truly make this world a better, more glittery place. And Mindi, thank you for making the world a better, more glittery place today.
Oh, thank you for sharing this message of hope. It was an honor to be here today.
Well, I think you're going to help a lot of people. So thanks for coming. And thank you, listeners, for coming as well to Kelly Appy. We are officially in season 3. And if you're enjoying the podcast, go ahead and subscribe. We're going to do this for about a half an hour each week. And if you like more positive messages, you can check out my YouTube blog, Monday Messages, hosted by yours truly, Kelly Mahoney. Until next week, have a great week, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Kelly Appy.